This business kind of treats us actors as a gumball machine. They put a quarter in you and they just ask for what they want out of you.
Scott Porter, runner-up on The Masked Singer.
Can you drop me a real quick
A beat?
Carry On My Wayward Son?
Carry on? Yeah, sure. Carry on my wayward son.
Whew. An actor on the hit show Ginny Georgia.
Paul's kind of the window in, so I try to be the best window that I can. So try and find the ground as often as I can.
But off-screen, he's made it his mission to fight Huntington's disease, a rare disorder affecting his mother-in-law and his wife.
You wanted your children to remember their mother as she was.
Yes. I still know my wife as the most capable person. I mean, our friend group calls her Superwoman.
And also creating space for empathy to those affected by HD.
Because that allows the person who is battling it to not feel some of those things about themselves.
Welcome to The Conversation with Pat Harvey. I'm Pat Harvey, and in this new series, I'll dive into various topics and issues with my guests in a more intimate and unfiltered setting. And my guest today is actor Scott Porter. He's on the hit Netflix show, Ginny Georgia, and he's also a big supporter of the Huntington's Disease Society of America, which we will get into a bit later. Scott, first of all, thanks for being here.
No, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. I am really excited to meet you. I remember you from Friday Night Lights. You played Jason.
Yep, Jason Street.
Football player.
Yes, otherwise known as 6 or QB1. Yeah.
And then you ended up in a wheelchair.
This is true, yes.
But that was such a good show. So did you play football in high school or college? Or?
I did. I'm originally from the state of Nebraska, so football is pretty much all you know growing up. You were spoken for as a Cornhusker fan all the way. And then my grandfather retired from the Air Force, which is why we lived up in Nebraska in the first place, and he moved to Florida. And when I got down there, Florida is almost on par with Texas as far as how seriously they take their football, the level of football. And I played at a big 6A school. And we made the state quarterfinals and state semifinals my junior and senior year. I was invited to walk on and play football at the University of Central Florida before I embarked on my entertainment career. So I knew Friday Night Lights, the brand from the film. And I watched it with my high school teammates because we experienced very much what they did in the film. Like this loss when the victory was right there in your hands. And we were from a school that had never had much success. And our class was able to bring some of that. So I knew I wanted to be a part of a show that read so special. The original script was incredible for that show, and I gave it all I got, and I was lucky enough to become a part of it.
Well, you did a great job, that's for sure. You also did Heart of Dixie.
Yes.
And we're going to get to Ginny Georgia a bit later, but I wanted to ask you when you decided you wanted to become an actor.
Oh, I didn't know that acting was anywhere in my future. I went to the University of Central Florida as a structural engineering major.
Okay.
One of my friends, his father was placing engineers across the world over in the Middle East as they were starting to build up. And they needed engineers from other places around the world, and he basically became an agent for engineers. And he told me, if you go to school, you get a degree, and UCF is a good engineering school, I can get you an apprenticeship, and I could probably get you 6 figures, you know, somewhere else in the world, learning the ropes and becoming an engineer. And for a 17-year-old kid, that sounds very attractive. You're like, oh, 6 figures in the late 90s. I'll be rich forever. So I went to school, and I wanted to not have any debt coming out of the other side. So I was picking up odd jobs. I worked as a dishwasher at Panera. I worked in a call center for AT&T. I was doing everything I could to make sure I was paying for each semester right up front.
Wow.
And I started picking up side jobs, singing. I was a part of an a cappella group. I was a beatboxer, and we would, you know, do conventions in Orlando, and there's a lot of them down there. So I was doing a lot of side work as an entertainer, and that led to a casting director asking me to come in and audition for Disney. I auditioned for them for 12 straight months, and then I got a full-time gig performing, you know, beatboxing and singing at Disney World, and then a full-time contract at Universal Studios, and that set me on my path. But I was still just a stage performer. I never thought of myself as an actor or thought myself capable of being an actor or being on screen. It was mostly just stage for a very long time for me.
Which is probably, you know, I think a lot of people will say that if you're a stage actor, you can easily do film. Right? You could do acting, but to be a stage actor, that's live.
Yeah,
right?
It is. I mean, there's something beautiful about the conversation that you have with an audience without even ever, you know, breaking that wall, but just, you know, sensing them and what they're really reacting to. And every show is different, you know, even though the words stay the same. I consider stage the strongest writer's medium because their words never change. Right? Shakespeare is always Shakespeare. People don't take liberties with it. But they update it emotionally. You know, they update it with the scenery and everything. But, you know, learning how to act on film or on television is a skill as well, because you have to be able to pull so much of that back. You're no longer having a live conversation or interaction with them. You've got to become smaller.
And you're talking with another actor.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm from the school of hard knocks. I learn on the fly. I was fortunate enough to do a couple of really great shows in New York off Broadway, and then get Friday Night Lights. And as soon as I got it, I realized that I've got to just listen. I've got to just watch and listen. All of these incredibly talented actors that are on the show, and pick up as much as I can, because I really felt like a fish out of water at the beginning of it. But you know, luckily I had some of the best teachers around. Watching Kyle Chandler and Connie Britton.
I was going to bring up those names for sure.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, an engineer, and here you are going into beatbox singing, and then you end up as an actor, which you do very well. And I'm sure you'd probably make a great engineer, but you know, we're going to stick with the acting for a minute. Now, let's fast forward to this Ginny and Georgia show. This is on Netflix. You play Mayor Paul Randolph.
Yes.
And I just want to say, Scott, when I first saw the show, I said, wow, how they actually made a series out of this. And you're going to start your third season on June 5th. But you've got murder, you've got all kinds of scandal, you know. I want you to tell me more about your character and what's it like working with, I mean, the protagonist is beautiful.
Oh, first of all, the entire cast is phenomenal. It reminds me very much of the cast on Friday Night Lights. We have a young cast full of insanely talented kids who, a lot of people, and I say kids, they're in their 20s, but you know what, I'm in my 40s now. I'm part of the parent generation of the show now. So, you know, but the thing is a lot of them, it's their first major thing and people's first introduction to this incredibly talented cast. But the adults that we have on the show are also very seasoned and incredibly talented. The show is led by two actresses that are just phenomenal. Really but if you think watching it, you're going, this show is crazy, you should have read the initial tagline before I went in for the appointment. I read the tagline and it said, it's Gilmore Girls meets Sons of Anarchy. Like there's an elevator pitch that everybody wants to do. They want you to mash up shows together and tell them what it is. We're not. We're our own show. We're nothing like Gilmore Girls. We're nothing like, you know, Sons of Anarchy. But you know, we have the fish out of water element where we have a family from the South moving to the Northeast with all these, you know, well-to-do families living in a style that they never have as they've bounced around and moved around. So I think the doorway into that town through Georgia Miller and her family is one that a lot of people out there can actually identify with. You know, going to a new place feeling like you have no base or structure underneath you and just searching, doing anything you can to support yourself and your kids. And, you know,
which is that's really what she's trying to do.
Yeah.
You know, take away the murder and the cover up and all of that. But
a lot of people say they'll do anything for their kids. And Georgia Miller, really, she takes that to the to the nth degree, if we can say. But, you know, reading the character of Paul, you know, it said he's the mayor. He's very interested in dragging this town, who is a very conservative nature, into the future a little bit and trying to get them to loosen up and shaken up and find that there's a world outside of this little bubble that they live in. You know, the creator likes to say silence is violence. So we talk about a lot of issues on the show in a very loud way with storylines, not with, you know, constant yelling, but with just touching on a lot of different, very important topics that she feels she needs to cover. And she said one of the biggest hurdles with a town like this, where everybody means well, is that they haven't experienced enough of the world outside of this place to know what other people actually mean.
And to do about it.
And Paul kind of really wants to do that. He wants to learn. He knows that there's a world outside of this small town of Wellsbury, and he wants to introduce everybody else in that town to it. But there's a resistance, and over the course of the show, you know, Paul gets a little frazzled. But it's been a fun ride.
Well, you know, you cover a lot of topics. I mentioned murder, scandals, that kind of thing, but you also, Ginny's character, I mean, she has a lot of issues that you even talk about cutting, and that is something that a lot of teenagers go through, unfortunately.
Yeah,
you know, that's very real. So you do touch on some very real topics.
We do. Self-harm is a major part of one of our character storylines, and we make sure that we tackle it with care, but we don't ever put shame or anything on it. This is something to just speak about a story that a lot of people actually are going through. And at the end of every episode, we have all the numbers that people can call. You know, mental health is a big crisis, and there are elements of it in our show, and we just try to make sure that people know that they're not alone, that there is help out there. And you know, the character arc for Ginny kind of follows that, you know. But there's so many things that we try to cover in the show, and we try to do it in a very responsible way, even though the show is crazy.
Now, I was going to say, I'm going to let you say it. It is. Yeah. It's cray-cray, folks.
It is crazy.
Really, but it's good. And you do cover a lot of topics. And when you said it's not like Sons of Anarchy, but there is a biker scene in there. But you know what? We do have a clip of season 3, Scott, and that comes out next month. So let's take a look at this.
Yeah. It's okay. It's gonna be okay.
Paul, I don't know what's happening. I talked to your fancy lawyer today, and he said all this awful scary stuff about life with no parole.
Well, that's not gonna happen.
Well, I don't know what's going on. I've been in here 2 nights already. Now I gotta stay in here again? What the hell? What damn good is being married to the mayor if you can't get me out of jail? And I don't know why they arrested me or what they have on me or...
Just calm down, okay?
Oh, thank you. Calm down. Why didn't I think of that? I could just calm down. Well, thanks, Paul. Now I got a bird's eye view on the whole situation.
We are going to get you out of here. We are going to get you answers. Josh Finn is the best there is, and I will never let anything bad happen to you.
Do you regret marrying me?
No.
Was that a pause?
Paul's pauses. Paul pauses very frequently, actually, because I think being in a relationship for Paul with someone like Georgia, there is almost a martial art to, you know, the maelstrom that's swirling around you, being able to find your center and try to center the storm as well. And she is a force of nature. And it's interesting. I love playing Paul because she has a tendency to topple a lot around her, but he, to this point, that clip I think is from episode 1 of season 3, has not been able to be toppled by like the force of nature that Georgia is. And
You've been a rock.
But I think the pauses are him. I mean, he's a politician, you know?
Right.
He definitely is always looking for the right thing to say in the right moment. He's also a bit of a solver, and I think those pauses are checks within himself to say, okay, I'm not going to invalidate anything here. I'm going to wait a moment before I just try to offer the solutions and find the right thing to say. Just here, you know? And so that's how I've approached Paul as we played this whole thing. And he's been kind of the regular person's window into this, you know, house of just... I mean, it's a mess. It's a little bit of a mess, the Miller household. But
it's a hot mess.
It's a hot mess, but it's also a kind of a beautiful mess. But Paul's kind of the window in. So I try to be the best window that I can. So try and find the ground as often as I can. And it's actually where a lot of the humor comes from in the show.
Right.
You know?
Because it is funny.
It flips the script. Paul is the mayor of Wellsbury, and the Miller family is the fish out of water as they come into the town that he is the mayor of. But once he enters their household, he's the one that's out of his element. And you get to see that awkwardness play out of him trying to be a good husband and am I a parent? What do I need to do here with a teenager and a 10-year-old? What do I do? You know, he's entering into something, and maybe he feels like he, you know, bit off a little more than he could chew sometimes, but he always finds a way to get through.
Yeah, very, very solid. There's no question about that. How did you prepare for that? I mean, how did you, did they tell you, you know, the producers, well, this is how we want you to interpret this character, or did you just sort of add some of your own abilities into playing the mayor?
Yeah, you know, with Paul, there could have very easily been in the scenes that you audition with on this show, there was a scene in season 1 where he finally tells her, like, I like you and you like me, and this town's gonna have a problem with, but to hell with them, who cares? And there's this, like, you know, but I didn't, it felt like a lot of old power, like in the writing almost. Paul fights with his father a lot about how to go about politics. His dad is a very old guard, conservative guy. You need buddies. This is how you gain power. This is how you know, rule the world. And Paul fights against that. He doesn't want that. He doesn't want that same thing. He wants to create change a different way. And that's what I got from Paul immediately. So I didn't want to overdo it in those scenes.
You did, and you don't.
Just let it sit a little bit and understand that, like, I think there is a true caring soul within Paul. And I think has to put this armor on to compete in the world that he's put himself into. And so I wanted to play some of that in the audition, and luckily it connected.
Okay, I know you can't tell me, but I want to say, well, now, Scott, is this how Paul remains? Because I've been waiting, but like, wait a minute, there's got to be a crack in that armor somewhere.
You know how many times I've been asked if I'm going to survive the series? You know, because every husband of Georgia's up to this point has not fared well. Spoiler alert for everybody out there at home. But with Paul, I think going into season 3, the word I've been using almost everywhere is reckoning. Season 3 is a reckoning for a lot of our characters. Georgia has a past in which she has done things that are going, you know, the toll has come to be paid now.
Yeah, well, we saw the clip of her in jail, so that's not a, you know.
But Ginny, Marcus, like, all of these characters have been fending off things and have making decisions and pushing things to the side. And all of these things they've been trying to sweep under the rug or push to the side, they all come up and they rear their ugly head. For Paul, it's not listening to a single person in his life who told him, you are the mayor. You shouldn't walk into this marriage. You're going to put your career on the line. You're going to put everything on the line for Georgia Miller. And he didn't care. He did it, you know, willingly, and actually, like, sought it out, thinking that this could be really, honestly, the perfect partner for him. I think Paul thought in a way that Georgia's ability to go places he couldn't and do things that he wasn't willing to would add to what he was able to do on the face of things.
Okay, I could see that.
But those decisions also have a reckoning for him as we go into season 3. So how does her arrest at the end of season 2 affect his mayorship? How does it affect his marriage? How does it affect his future and the change that he wants to bring to the world? How does it affect all of that? And you see by the end of season 3 that, yeah, reckoning is coming.
So if you haven't seen it, folks, I know that's got to pull you in now, right? I can't wait for June 5th. Well, you know, you talked a little bit about it in the beginning of our conversation about you singing. And I'm bringing this up that, you know, you don't just sing in the shower. It's not that kind of singing. You know, I know you said you didn't have training per se, but you were runner-up in The Masked Singer. That's huge.
I was.
You were Gumball.
That show was a wild ride, and have it, the costume, the mask of Gumball was really such an eye-opening experience for me, because when you land in Hollywood, or when I landed in Hollywood and started doing Friday Night Lights, the business was very bifurcated. It was very much, you must stay in your own lane. You are a film actor, or you are a television actor, or you are a stage actor. And it was almost like very few people were allowed to cross over into anything. So when I got out here and I started talking to casting directors and telling them, you know, I'd love to still sing, I'd love to still, you know, I did some shows off Broadway, the reaction was very often, oh, that's cute. but you know, now it's
Because
time to
you
go
are-
into the next phase
right.
of your career. It's just the way that they thought about things back then. But now you have Meryl Streep on a half hour on Hulu. You know what I mean? Like there are these like really, everybody's now allowed to be versatile, but I had shoved that down for so long and not really leaned into being able to sing.
Well, how does that happen when you, the Masked Singer? Tell us, you know, did you approach them or did they approach you? Or does your agent give them, you know, your name? How does that work?
Yeah, they approached me towards the end of our actor strike a couple of years ago.
Oh, yes.
And, you know, there was a lot of waiting. There wasn't a lot of things going into production. And I had done a charity event raising money for arts programs in inner city schools. But it was a country music night, and I sang Bless the Broken Road by Rascal Flatts.
Oh,
and I
okay.
guess somebody recorded it and put it up on YouTube. It somehow landed on the producer's desk. And she said, we need to reach out to Scott Porter and see if he'll have any interest in doing The Masked Singer. And I never expected to get that phone call. People have guessed that I've been on the show for a number of years. I got so many, when Chris Daughtry was on the show, everybody was sure that it was me because there were hints that it was football, there was a blue bow on his shoulder, and people would let me know on social media, hey, I know it's you.
That's
and I'm like,
you.
It's not me.
And they were
I'm not."
wrong. And
But-
then they were wrong because they didn't
Yeah.
guess it was you. They went all around it trying
Yeah.
to. I thought it was kind of funny.
But looking at the level of celebrity that's been on that show, the talent of the singers that they've had on that show, the winners, the runners-up, the people that even get eliminated before they get to a final is, I mean, the level of talent on that show has been so fantastic for, you know, I guess 12 seasons now, 13 seasons now, that I never thought I would be a part of that. So when they asked, I sat on it for about 30 minutes, and then I was like, you know what? Yes, I'm doing this for me. I'm gonna do this for me. My parents met in a rock band in the 80s.
Wow.
You know, it was just me and my mom for the first 6 years of my life, and then my dad came into the picture, and he was a drummer. They needed a female singer for their band. My mom auditioned, and the rest is history. They got married. So Butch and Robin Porter, hi, Mom and Dad. But I would go with them to, you know, saloons in the Midwest on a Friday night, set up my dad's drums, play foosball with the bouncer, and then fall asleep on the office manager's couch. So I was around music growing up my whole life. And I
But you
guess
didn't study it, per se.
I didn't study it. You know, I was in chorus in high school. I was in a barbershop quartet in high school. I was in
Aw.
a doo-wop quintet that would sing on the street corners of Orlando and Church Street in downtown Orlando, just for enough cash to go, you know, get dinner at Steak and Shake that night. But I wanted to sing, and I loved performing. But you know, I never thought that was going to be the career path for me. So this sparked all of that again, and really showed me, you know, it's still a part of me.
You came out, I mean, I've seen at least 6 clips of you singing, and he was phenomenal. And Gumball, the character itself, was just, I mean, that costume was incredible. What did your children think about that? I know you have 2 kids.
You know, it was interesting because I'm friends with Wayne Brady, who won
Yeah.
season 2 of The Masked Singer. And him and I came up kind of in the same crew of people in Orlando, doing improv and doing theater and doing stage shows. And he won season 2. So I called him immediately upon getting the offer. And he told me a couple of things. He said, lead with talent and make sure that
Lead with talent.
that you get the character and the story married together in a way that is truthful to you. So I was all excited. I was like, well, I guess I'll go design my costume. Because in season 2, when he did it, they only did 1 season a year. He designed his costume. He created this fairy tale of like telling his daughter all of these stories through the costume of himself when he was young.
I didn't know that.
And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do all this. And I get the call and they're like, okay, Scott, we're gonna get on the Zoom. We've got pre-made costumes, but we got one picked out for you. You think you're gonna love it, okay? We're gonna give you a hint, okay? It takes quarters. I was like, I'm a gamer. I love video games. I was like, am I an arcade? Am I an arcade game? I was like, am I?
Fortnite.
And then they're like, no. It's got a lot of moving parts. Uses coins. I was like, am I a jukebox? This is awesome. And they're like, no, just show him the costume. And I was like, I am a Gumball Voltron. This is insane. This Gundam suit, this like mech Gumball machine.
There you are. It was
And
great.
I didn't know how to approach it at first. And then I realized like, what's so cool about Gumball is there's so many different flavors in a Gumball machine.
Right.
You've got orange, strawberry, watermelon, pound, you know, whatever these flavors of the gum are. but also this business kind of treats us actors as a gumball machine. They put a quarter in you and they just ask for what they want out of you.
Whoa.
And that's how it was for so long. But when I did this show, I was able to show all the different flavors, all the different versatility. And once I unlocked that in my head, the second thing that Wayne said to me about, really make this character come alive, because it's not a singing show, it's a performance show. And that's all about connection. So I gave him his own kind of movement. I made him move like an animatronic. And every part of my life story that we told through Gumball, it just started to fit and fall into place. And it was, it was such a, I don't know, it's just such a cool experience to share so much about your life, but through a character. It's very freeing.
Through a gumball machine.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to you say you did the movement. I thought you were like limited, so that's what you did. But no, you actually practice walking or portraying an animatron in that costume. Scott, can you drop me a real quick
A beat?
Carry On My Wayward Son?
Carry on? Yeah, sure. Okay. Carry on my wayward son.
Whew.
There'll be peace when you are done. Yeah.
Wow.
Grew up.
Listening to you, and when you said, I did some beatbox singing, I sang on the corner, that was excellent. Right now, that was excellent. So I don't know if are you going to continue? Have you ever thought about doing a recording?
I never did until I did The Masked Singer. Allison Porter was my vocal coach. She was on The Voice, and she's fantastically talented, all her own. And she kept on telling me, she was like, Scott, do something, sing, please, do something. But I never really thought that was something I would be going back to. I just kind of take life as it comes, and I've never been afraid to say yes. I mean, I've been all over this world performing and everything because I've never been afraid of yes. But the recording studio and all of that stuff, I'm so far away from that. I have been for so long, but it is something I would like to continue doing. And in the last couple of years, singing has come back into my life in full force. I've done a couple of smaller musicals in Los Angeles. Now I've done The Masked Singer. I'm reconnecting with my old a cappella group. They're called Voice Play. You can find them on YouTube. They're an incredible group. 3 of the members I went to high school with. 3 of the members I was in a barbershop quartet with in high school.
So you know each other really well.
Yeah, and I've recently gone back and recorded another song with them. So yeah, I'm going to keep singing.
Okay.
I'm back. It's here for good. Just got to find the right avenues for it. And I don't know that a cover album is the thing I want to do right now, but there's a lot of people saying, hey, put Gumball's Greatest Hits on an album, we'll buy it. So maybe I should.
You know what? It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Now, Scott, you recently did an interview with People magazine saying that your career wouldn't have been possible without your wife, Kelsey. So how is that? And I'd like you to tell us how you two met.
Yeah, we met towards the tail end of my time on Friday Night Lights. And the cool thing about meeting my wife, she was a former UT cheerleader. She knew a lot of the former UT football players, and a lot of those guys became our stuntmen on Friday Night Lights.
Oh.
And I became really good friends with these guys. Like I said, I played football into college. We had a flag football team in Austin. We won the city championship a couple of times. It was a little bit unfair. I mean, we have former NCAA Division I athletes as our stunt guys. So James Brown, who was the quarterback for Texas, was Aldis Hodges' stunt double. Eric Smart, who was a strong safety at Texas Tech, he was Tim Riggins' stunt double.
Oh,
so I met Kelsey through them. And we started dating, and we had been dating for about 6 months. And she was like, oh, I'm so excited about going out tonight. And I said, well, I've got work. And she goes, no, you don't. Everybody's going out. All the guys, we're all going out. I was like, no, I'm not. She was like, what are you doing? I was like, I have to work. She's like, what do you do on the show? I said, I'm an actor. She was like, I thought you were a stunt guy. So what I loved about it is that she had never seen the show. She had no idea who I was outside of just a guy that was, that met through friends of friends, and so that's how our relationship started. What you referenced at the beginning of this question was, years later, now that we have a family, to continue to do this is to continue to leave home, is to continue to go on the road. And what she does in raising our kids and keeping me afloat, keeping my head up, there's pockets of this career where the phone's not ringing anymore. Then you're not sure if that phone's ever going to ring again. You know, this is a fickle business. She's been my strongest supporter, and she is the most incredible mom, the best partner you could really ask for. So I'm talking really, you know, as we grow together, as our relationship pushes further and as our kids grow up, you know, what I do now is not possible if I don't have a partner like her. And I'm just really, really fortunate to have her as my wife.
Well, I haven't met Kelsey, but I could tell. I mean, you're a beautiful couple. I have seen some clips because there's something else we're going to talk about, May being Mental Health Awareness Month, and you are very involved with Huntington disease because it is Huntington's Disease Awareness Month.
Yeah.
And that's a cause that's very dear to you. I want to explain to our audience what it is. Huntington's disease is a rare genetic disorder. Some people describe it as a blend of ALS, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's. And according to UCLA, about 41,000 Americans have HD. 200,000 are at risk of inheriting it. Your mother-in-law is battling HD, and your wife, Kelsey, has the gene. When did you and your wife decide to get tested, or to get her tested, I should say?
So my mother-in-law had been misdiagnosed with a number of things. When you have Huntington's disease, as you described, ALS, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, all rolled into one, it's because it affects your motor skills, it affects your memory, it affects your mood, it affects your balance, it affects everything all at once. It's a genetic disorder, and it comes out of the building blocks of your DNA. And a lot of doctors aren't familiar with it. So the first diagnosis, because she was moving her hands a lot, was she has carpal tunnel. So they put her in carpal tunnel sleeves and did all these. That's how far off the diagnosis was, the first diagnosis that she got. After Kelsey and I got married, we started speaking about having kids, and Diane, my mother-in-law, was finally diagnosed with having Huntington's disease.
After so many appointments with different doctors trying to determine exactly what her diagnosis was.
Her mother was misdiagnosed. Her mother was misdiagnosed with a mental illness and was not given the proper care and ended up passing away very young. And
So sorry.
when we say genetic disease, what we're really saying is how it's unlike Parkinson's or ALS or Alzheimer's is every child of a parent with Huntington's disease has a 50-50 shot of inheriting the gene that gave their parent the disease. It doesn't skip generations. And when you say 50-50, you're talking about a coin flip, but everybody out there knows that if you flip a coin 10 times, it's not going to be 5 and 5. It's not going to be half and half. You know, it just depends on what the probabilities are. So when we were talking about having children, she was diagnosed, Diane was diagnosed, my mother-in-law, and they told us the Christmas after my wife and I got married. We immediately decided, well, I say we, this is really, it's Kelsey, and anybody who is at risk of Huntington's, it's their own personal decision. And there's no right or wrong answer to get tested or to not get tested. But Kelsey, because she wanted to be a mother, said, I'm going to go get tested right away. So we went through the series of tests. We found out that she was gene positive. And for everybody out there at home, what gene positive means is that she has Huntington's disease. It's not an if. It's not will it eventually, it is when it will eventually start to become symptomatic. So anybody who's dealing with chorea, which is the autonomic reflexes that are happening in your body that a lot of people with Huntington suffer from, or it's memory, or it's balance, or it's all these things. When you have those, you're called symptomatic. When you're waiting for your symptoms to begin, you are called gene positive. And I don't know how Kelsey does it each and every day. But she chooses not to allow it to dictate her present. The future does not dictate who I am right now, what I can do right now, what my capabilities are, you know, today.
She's living in the moment.
And then after her decision to get tested, we had to find a way to have kids in a healthy way without them having Huntington's. We went through a process called PGD IVF. We have 2 beautiful children now who are Huntington's free, which means for us, for Kelsey and I going forward, our family line is no longer at risk of Huntington's. So
beautiful.
if my son and daughter choose to have kids of their own, they will not have this battle to go through. So,
Scott, when Kelsey got tested and you decided to have children, I think, if this is correct, I read, I believe, where you made a statement that you wanted your children to remember their mother as she was.
yes. There was a moment a few years ago when my wife turned to me and she said one of her greatest regrets is that I'll never know her mom the way that she knows her mom. Her mother was everything Kelsey is now. You know, head of PTA and became a teacher. She was a special education teacher. She was impactful to everyone around here. She was the most capable woman that anybody knew in their neighborhood in Cedar Hill, Texas. When if you needed something done, you called Diane Mayfield and she was there and she was doing it. She was helping you build everything, create everything, craft everything. She was helping you raise money for everything. And that is everything that my wife does now for our kids and their school. And I think it's so incredible for them to know her as I knew her when we met. And that's really important to me, and that was really important to her. Her words were, I want to be a mother as long as I can, after she got tested, so we had kids as quickly as we could. IVF is a longer, a little more arduous journey than you know, most pregnancies, but we did it as quickly as we could, and I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful that that both of our kids, they understand how lucky they are to have a mother like Kelsey. And
So they know about Huntington's?
They do.
You explained it to them?
We had to. My in-laws spend about 3 months out of the year with us every year. We go visit them an awful lot down in Texas. And we wanted to explain to them why we call her Gammy. That's their grandma. Why Gammy has certain movements, or why Gammy, you know, sometimes speaks a certain way, or why Gammy will repeat herself sometimes. There are things that we just wanted them to know why, and allow them to have space to create their own empathy, to create their own relationship, to, you know, have no fear or any, you know, misgivings about Gammy, you know, in the way that she is. And they love her so much, and they have their own special relationship with her that is so unique just for them and for her, that we don't believe they wouldn't be capable of having that relationship with her if we weren't open and honest with them about everything that it is.
And how old are your children?
My son's turning 10, and my daughter's going to be turning 8 very soon. So almost 10 and 8. Yeah.
What a beautiful age, and especially to hear you talk about them and the relationship they have with their Gammy. That's very special, and can certainly see why them growing up, you know, knowing that their mom carries the same gene, but to have that relationship right now, to be so warm and loving and accepting, that says a lot about you and your wife. There's no question about that.
Yeah, you know, we just, as, you know, in Ginny and Georgia, we cover a lot of ground, you know, or you said it was also Mental Health Awareness Month, which it is. When you have something like HD, you can feel alone, you can feel misunderstood. Some people feel shame. Families are completely and totally wrecked by this disease. I wear a band that says family is everything. Huntington's disease is called the quintessential family disease because, like I said earlier, every child of a parent with HD has a 50-50 shot of inheriting it. So if you look at a great-grandparent having HD, say they had 4 kids, and those 4 kids each had 3 kids of their own, every single one of those dots, every single one of those leaves on that family tree has a 50-50 shot of having Huntington's. So you can go from 1 to 14 to 18 to 30 people in a family at the drop of a hat. And as soon as one person is diagnosed, you have to go, okay, how far does it spread?
Yeah.
And, you know, we just, for us in this situation, creating space for empathy and everything is super important because that allows the person who is battling it to not feel some of those things about themselves, to not feel alone, to not feel ashamed of anything.
Different.
They're doing nothing wrong. They have something that is a part of them, and they shouldn't be, cast off or anything because of that. So that's the last thing we'd ever want to happen. And so speaking to our kids early about it, that's something that felt very right for us, and we're glad that we did it.
May I ask you, how is Kelsey okay? I mean, in terms of, does she have visible symptoms, or is life pretty much, I don't know if normal is the right word.
Yeah, I mean, this is a question that I ask myself often as the partner of somebody who's battling something like Huntington's disease. I'm with her every day. I don't see any change. And I still know my wife as the most capable person. I mean, our friend group calls her Superwoman, She loves building things with her hands. I mean, she has a table saw in the garage. She goes to your house. She helps you with it. Like, she's like the handy woman. Like, she's just, everybody calls her. And so no, not right now. And we do a lot of advocacy with the Huntington's Disease Society of America to raise money for two different fronts. And one of them, of course, is to find a cure, to continue trying to fund these tests and these trials, to try and find a way in. Those of us who are battling Huntington's disease, we have a leg up over some diseases in the fact that we know what causes it. We have a part of the equation. We understand where it comes from. There's literally a building block in our DNA that you and I have repeat 20 times. The people with Huntington's have 40 times or more. At some point, it duplicated itself. And that little building block creates a protein that helps our body stay scrubbed and clean and healthy. But in too much, starts to destroy the body. And we know that that's what causes symptomatic Huntington's disease. So, of course, we're trying to find a cure. But when you talk about numbers, 41,000 Americans diagnosed, 200,000 at risk, if you really extrapolate those numbers, it's much, much wider. And there are so many people who don't have the proper support, who get misdiagnosed. So the other wing of it is making sure that there are doctors in this country, that there are medical facilities in this country that are able to quickly diagnose, quickly prescribe therapies, whether it's speech therapy, occupational therapy, mental therapy, therapy for family members who do not have it, but are trying to figure out how to best help those that are symptomatic, right? And to do that, we focus on building what we call centers of excellence with HDSA. It costs about $8,000. Every charity event that I work on, we try to raise in increments of $8,000 if we can. That means we can send a team into a different hospital in a different city or a different town in this country, educate the doctors on what the markers of HD are, how to help families, how to support them, for those that are battling it right now. So we attack it on two fronts, and that's, like I said, we don't let the future dictate the present, and all we can do is all we can do. And what we can do right now is try and raise money, try and battle this thing, and then allow Kelsey to just live her every day to the fullest. And that's what she chooses to do, and that's what she does.
Well, you also go about this in terms of raising funds through a very fun way, right? You've got, games, because you love games.
Yeah.
Popular comics, that kind of thing. So people actually can come out to an event. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, I led a big charity event in Los Angeles called Freeze HD. It was a giant Hollywood gala. We had all this, props and paraphernalia from films and signed posters and all of these things. But it was a 9-month-long, journey every year to put this event on. And, one year we raised over $428,000. It's still a single-day record for the most money ever raised to battle Huntington's disease and support the families battling it. But it started to wear on Kelsey and I a little bit. We were chairing the event. She was honored one year, but that was making Huntington's a part of her daily life in a way that we don't normally approach it. So after a number of years, and after a couple $1 million raised, we stepped back, and I said, how can I do this in a way where I'm spreading awareness, but also maybe bringing a little levity or getting people to smile, to laugh, to do all these things and bring hope into the equation. And I thought superheroes, like what's more hopeful than Superman or Spider-Man, like coming to the rescue. And I have a lot of friends who are comic book creators, Jim Lee, Scotty Young. I mean, these are some of the greatest artists that comics have ever known. And they were donating to Freeze HD, and I said, okay, I'm gonna get them together. I'm gonna do Heroes for Huntingtons. I'm gonna have them do art commissions, and then we're gonna make a ton of money, and it's gonna be great. Then the pandemic hit, and comic book stores were falling apart across the country.
Right.
And so they said, we're gonna do it, but we're gonna raise money to save these stores. And so they did. So I had to go back to the drawing board. And I've been playing a little tabletop game called HeroClix for the better part of 2 decades. It's like chess with superheroes.
Okay.
We have a very small, very supportive community. And I said, why don't I change it from Heroes for Huntingtons to HeroClix for Huntingtons, which is the name of the game. And we started a tournament weekend. Me and my friend Howard partnered on it. He has a gaming store in Huntsville, Alabama. So every year I travel down to Huntsville, Alabama, and we put on a 5-day-long event, and hundreds of people come and play this tabletop game and have a fantastic time doing it, and we laugh and we roll dice and we win and we lose, but we raise money for the charity.
Wow.
We do an auction for people internationally who play the game but can't be there, so that they can bid on pieces, special pieces. Like you can immortalize yourself in the game of HeroClix by winning one of these auction items. I make a special map every year for the event, so I've done a Friday Night Lights map, I've done a Speed Racer map, I've done this year I did a Marvel Rivals map because I'm Star-Lord in a brand new big game called Marvel Rivals. So maybe a Heart of Dixie map sometime, for those fans out there.
Right.
But if anybody's interested in checking out our event, they can go to heroclixforhuntingtons.com. But if this isn't your cup of tea, if comics and tabletop gaming and all of that stuff, sitting at a table for 8 hours playing a game isn't your cup of tea, you're more active, you want to go out, you want to hike, you want to go bowl, you want to go play baseball, you want to go do any of these things in any part of this country, go to hdsa.org. We have an events page. It's updated constantly.
Wonderful.
And there are so many cool ways to get involved. If you like to cook, we have all these chef-directed, Zooms, or, we have, if you like a good bourbon, we have bourbon tastings. There's so many different ways to get involved. And the thing that I ask, because May is Huntington's Disease Awareness Month, is if you've learned anything about HD this month, please just spread the word just a little bit about what some people call this boutique disease, this disease that for a lot of people is too small to care about, but for the people that are battling it is too large to defeat on our own. So we need help. We need to spread awareness, and I thank you for letting me talk about it.
Well, you're so very, very welcome. Before I let you go, do want to ask you this, because most people, when they get involved, let's say even if they don't know about a particular disease that we're talking about, if they hear, well, but they're making headway, there are some things you can do. Are there treatments right now? I know there's not a cure.
So there's a trial that's in a second phase right now that is, but we go through this every year of looking promising, hearing these words, As of right now, there's not a cure. As of right now, there is not a way to stop the protein that causes HD in a lot of people from proliferating in the large number that it does within the people that are battling the disease. There's no way right now. Doesn't mean we're not working on it.
There you go.
And it doesn't mean we don't have hope for the future. I talked about the Freeze HD event. That's really what we want to do. We want to stop this thing in its tracks, But we also want to make sure that the people out there that are battling it know that we are here. That we are here, that they're not alone,
support.
that they're not alone, that they're not going through this by themselves. And the more people we can touch in that way is almost more meaningful right now, because the battle to cure it, the battle to stop this thing in its tracks, it's not going to come from me or my friends in the HD community. That's going to come from scientists in a different level, in a different field, and we can help fund it. But the day-to-day we don't know about. What we can do day-to-day is reach a hand out and say, hey, I'm here. Is be there for somebody and make somebody laugh or smile. Make a connection. I mean, some of the greatest friends that these people have are each other in this community, and they've only found each other because of some, the charity of HDSA and all the work it does to really foster this community and grow it. And we have people that don't have anybody in their life with HD, but have a friend of a friend who have come to join the community and take part in some of our events. So I just ask that if you're out there, just stop by hdsa.org if you want to learn more. And if you want to go have a good time one night, join one of the events. They're everywhere. Hey.
Reaching out a hand.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Oh, yes.
Really.
This has been an awesome conversation.
Oh,
you
I
took
hope
me
you
way
feel-
back. We were talking about stuff all the way from the beginning to now.
That's what I want to do. That's,
Yeah.
that's conversations,
Yeah.
I know we talked about Ginny and Georgia, of course, and other things that you've done, but I'd like to get into, well, where did it all start?
Right.
What are you about? Now I know so much more about you, and I'm sure other people will too,
Yeah.
after watching this, and it's just, you're just a wonderful human being.
No, I'm just, just trying to go through every day.
Yeah.
It's like we said, all we can do is all we can do. So I'm just trying to do all I can every day.
Yeah, but you're helping a lot of people by coming forth talking about this.
No.
And quite frankly, when I go back in the newsroom, I'm going to hear people say, I've never heard of Huntington disease. So this is an education, as well as people being able to have fun, to watch you act, to hear you sing. And you mentioned the Marvel comics, that's all great. There are people that love all of those things. So if they just get involved, then you've done a heck of a lot for humanity as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. I hope so.
Because it's got to start. If you don't know about it, you can't do anything about it.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
I want to wish you all the luck, and I thank you for coming by, taking the time. I know you had a busy day.
Yeah.